It's come to my attention that everyone's talking about the best lookup method in Excel. And I'm sorry to be the one to tell you that if you think it's XLOOKUP, you probably have a pretty bad case of brain rot. I'm Matt. I've spent the last 10 years working in an investment bank. I know a thing or two about working in PowerPoint and Excel. I'm going to explain the differences between VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, and index match, and when it's best to use each of them. If you're just tuning in for the first time, or you're a returning Planet Happening listener, which surprisingly likely to be a middle-aged Japanese woman, you're going to want to stick around for the end, where I have a few advanced tips and tricks that I've literally seen no one else ever talk about. Let's get into them. Let's look at our VLOOKUP here. We have a nice simple data set, different inbound marketing sources, and then how many website views came from each of those sources each year. Your boss comes to you and asks, how many page hits did we get from email marketing in 2023? The typical way that you do in a VLOOKUP, type in here. First, Excel pretty handily gives you all the inputs for each formula, whatever you need. So here it's saying the first thing we need to input into the formula is the lookup value. So in this case, we're saying we want it to look up email marketing. Next is the table array. The table array is going to be the total data set where we want it to look for our lookup value. So here I'll select the entire table. Then it asks for the column. The column here, we want to be the 2023 column. And if we look over here, we can see that 2023 is the fourth column. So the label column counts. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. We type in 4. And then the last one, if it's true or approximate match, 99% of the time, you only want an exact match. So here, we only want it if it exactly matches the email marketing the way we typed it in. So we'll put 0, or you could type false. Either one works. And here, it'll spit out 7,354,000. And if we go manually check that for ourselves, we say email marketing 2023, 7,354,000. Nice and easy. If we want to replicate the same thing with XLOOKUP, we'll type it in quick. XLOOKUP, very similar starting point. Say, look up email marketing. And here, this is where it gets a little bit different. Say, where do we want to find the lookup? Give me all the labels we have here. And next, it's where do you want to get the return output? And here, in this case, we know we want the 2023 one. And so we'll say, look it up there. There's no need to enter a column or anything, because since we're specifying the return array, it's automatically knowing it's just right there. And then we see we get exactly the same thing. It returns the same 7.3 million. Nice and easy. You don't have to think about the column numbers or anything like that. It's just, where are you looking up your thing? Where do you want the output? And then lastly, the oldest lookup method, and admittedly the most complicated, but the most powerful, is the index match. So the index match isn't a built-in formula like XLOOKUP and VLOOKUP. So it combines two different formulas, the index formula, and then we'll be using the match formula inside of it. Let's break it down into its easiest pieces. First, the index formula is the one that's going to be covering the whole thing. There's only 3 inputs to the index formula: the array, which is just the whole data set, which row we want, and then which column we want. The array is obviously our whole data set. And then if we want to go with email marketing 2023 again, we'll go email marketing is row 3. And then the column is 2023, and that's column 4. Then close that out, we'll get the exact same thing. Where does the match formula come in? You don't want to have to go looking through all your different data labels in the data set to find the one you want, or look for the column to find that either. You want Excel to figure out which one it is for you. We'll use the match formula, and here we want to look up email marketing. And now, where do we want to look it up? We want it to look up just where the lookup values are. So since the array in the index match is the entire data set, we also need it to be the same number of rows tall as the array was in the index formula. And then we want it to be an exact match. Now, same thing for column. We'll say we want to look up 2023 because that's the column we want. And we want it to look it up here in these labels, right? And once again, we need to include the first one with the data labels because we selected that in the array formula. Our array was 6 columns long. And so our lookup array also needs to be 6 columns long. Otherwise, the formula can get confused. We'll do that. And that'll spit out 4. So if we put the whole thing together, index, select the whole table, row, we'll do our row match. So we'll look up email marketing. We want to look it up in the first column here. And we want an exact match. And now we're back in the index formula. And we want to do the match again to get the column number. And we'll take 2023. We'll look that up again across the whole thing. Exact match. Close out the column match. Close out the index. We get the same thing. So now each one of our lookup methods have returned the same number correctly. Obviously, the index match was the most complicated to get there. So you can see why Gen Z and the younger group are looking at XLOOKUP and saying, it's so much easier. I don't need to think about column numbers. I can just tell it, look here, give me what I want. But there's a lot of scenarios where VLOOKUP and index match can return multiple values at once that we'd be really interested in using, whereas the XLOOKUP will only work for each specific time. Let's look how a VLOOKUP can give us multiple outputs using the same formula. Here, I want to get 2023 through 2025. If we were just doing a VLOOKUP, look up email marketing, we'll give it the whole table. And now this is where we would get stuck. Like if I just type in 4, because that's where 2023 is, and then say exact match, you'll see they're all the same number here, which isn't what we want. They're all returning the 2023 number because they're all looking up column 4. The easiest way to do that is we don't even have to use a formula. We can just grab these, paste them over there, and now instead of typing in 4, I'm going to say, give me what's in row 5. And now you'll see it's grabbing each of them. As you can see, using these column inputs, this one VLOOKUP will work no matter what, right? All we have to do is change the column number there. So if we want 2022 instead, we can drop it in. And it'll grab 2022 because it's always just looking at that for the input. Whereas if we do XLOOKUP and we wanted to mix and match these columns at all, we would always have to manually change the return array. And so that's one area where I use VLOOKUPs all the time, and I just use these separate headers to pull it in instead of using XLOOKUP only when you want to look up one thing really quickly. XLOOKUP is obviously better, but if you're trying to pull in multiple things with one formula, this is the way to go. So now let's look at how an index match would operate with this multi-year setup. Index, we know this whole data set is our array. Our row is going to be whatever marketing source we want. So we're going to say look up email marketing. We're going to say look up here and then match that. Then we have to match the column. And so our column is we're going to say look at the year, look for it in here, and give us an exact match. And now you see we get the exact same thing with the index match, but we didn't have to do anything special, right? Whereas on a standard VLOOKUP, you can hard code in the column that you wanted to return. Whereas here with the index match, it's always dynamic. There's nothing special you have to do to it. So that's really the benefit of the index match, where it always works. And if I type in 2022 here, it just works automatically. I don't have to finagle with doing different column numbers or a different formula or something else to dynamically figure out the column. That's already baked into the index match. If you made it this far, I was saying, where are some edge cases where I can unlock even more power from these formulas. And I have a really good index match trick that I use all the time. And I swear I've never seen anyone else use it or talk about it. And here I have a much bigger data set where instead of having a nice little summarized output like we were doing before, I have 1,000 rows of data. Normally, what you would do here is you would do a very similar thing where it's like we'd want to get a total for email marketing, and we would use a sum if here. So we'll say, look in here, only grab the ones that say email marketing, and then give me everything in 2023. And it will output the number, right? But we'll have to do the same thing that we had with the XLOOKUP and the standard VLOOKUP. We'll have to manually move the sum range. And we don't want to do that because like it's fine when we're doing 3 years here on a nice simple table. But if you need to do this 100 times, I guarantee you're going to mess one of them up. Once again, we go back to how can we use one formula that works across all of them? And there's a trick we can do with index match inside of SUMIF to give us a dynamic sum range that changes every single time. So the trick to this one is we'll select our table like normal, but our row number is we're not going to tell it to look up email marketing yet. We're going to say, give us row number 0, which obviously does not exist, but you'll see why we did that in a second. Then the column number we'll do just as before. So we'll say, look up 2023, look it up in here, and give me an exact match. And now what you'll see is since we didn't give it a specific row number, it'll give us every single value in the 2023 column. And if we copy that over, it'll work same for 2024 and for 2025. So this is now giving us a dynamic set of numbers. And we'll use this inside the formula to give us a super dynamic sum if that we can use over and over again. We'll keep this index match inside of our new sum if we're about to create. So let's start the sum if just like we were before. First, it's asking for the range. That'll be the first column. We want to return it if it's email marketing. And then our sum range is the index match we just created, which remember will output multiple numbers. And so now using this index match with a 0 row value gives you a moving set of numbers based on the year header that then we can use over and over. Let's close that. And it outputs the right number. And if we just do that for every year, it's working. One thing in the sum if, it looks at this whole data set, but using the index match with that 0 completely makes it completely flexible that like we can make it look up wherever we want, whatever we want. Just to prove it, let's look at paid social here. Copy that down. This one formula works for every year, for every source, gives you whatever you want. This is a really powerful index match trick that like I've never seen anyone else use, but I use it all the time. If you guys learned something, how about you thank me with a little like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.